All eyes are on the BRICS Summit currently underway in Johannesburg. There is high speculation around Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi meeting Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the meeting. The Russian president is in virtual attendance as an international arrest warrant dangles over his head. All this as over 60 non-member countries participate in the summit. Among them are 20 states that eye for a place in the bloc. Amid all the furor surrounding the three-day diplomatic event, every member of the alliance has come to the summit with an agenda. Let's take a closer look at what each nation is bringing to the table. For Russia and China, both nations share a deep inclination to challenge a perceived Western hegemony in global institutions. China is specifically looking to make the BRICS bloc a substantial rival to the Western G7 alliance. And how does the Asian superpower aim to achieve that? By bringing on board more member countries into the bloc and expanding its global influence. At the moment, over 20 countries have sent an official request to join the group. Speculation suggests that Saudi Arabia, UAE, Venezuela are some countries, to name a few.
I'm reminded, dear friends, that it is through trading, through travel and through dialogue that friendships and lasting relationships.
Well, for South Africa, there are economic objectives that the host country has set its eyes on. Reports say that the nation is counting on BRICS to endorse and support the Africa Continental Free Trade Area established in 2018. The AFCFTA aims to bring tremendous opportunity to African economies and accelerate trade for the continent. What you see now are live shots from Johannesburg. This is the initial start of the BRICS Summit, which is about to commence any time from now. The delegates have already assembled. As you can see on your screen, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is already in attendance. The South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, the host nation, has already begun or commenced the 15th BRICS Summit. The leaders are about to make their opening statements at the BRICS Summit, which is being held in Johannesburg, South Africa. Meanwhile, India treads a sensitive path, with reports saying that the country is rather hesitant of the BRICS expansion. New Delhi is also cautious of Beijing's goals of a unipolar Asia, which the latter can lead. This in the backdrop of China's already aggressive military expansion in the Indo-Pacific region, which has worsened ties with the United States. It will be interesting to see how the BRICS members vote on the bloc's or the BRICS bloc expansion, and if new members do join the group, who will they be? Moreover, how will their addition impact existing diplomatic relations with the alliance? Once again, this is live in Johannesburg. The summit is about to commence right now, with the leaders giving their opening statements. From the host nation, South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa is about to address the business forum of the BRICS Summit, then followed by the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, and the Chinese President Xi Jinping will also address the forum. This is called the Business Forum. It's the start of the BRICS, or marks the start of the BRICS bloc meeting or summit. Russian President Vladimir Putin will give his address, or has already given his address, his virtual address to the summit. We will be decoding what this summit means for the countries that are participating in this forum. Once again, this is live in South Africa, Johannesburg to be precise.
Russian writer Alexander Pushkin's great-grandfather was an African, Ibrahim Petrovich Ganibal, abducted from Cameroon.
Once again, if you're just joining us, this is live in Johannesburg at the commencement of the BRICS Summit. It's a two-day event which is about to start right now with the address from the leaders of the BRICS nation, which include India, China, Brazil, South Africa. And the presidents or the leaders of these countries are expected to give their opening address to the forum. That is Lula da Silva, the Brazilian president, who is about to address the forum. And joining us on this broadcast to talk about this summit is Captain Alok Bansal from Delhi. He is the director of India Foundation and the executive director of South Asian Institute for Strategic Affairs. Also joining us at this hour is Professor Anthony van Nieuwkerk from Johannesburg. He is a professor of international and diplomacy studies at University of South Africa. Thank you both for joining us at this hour on WION World is One. And the summit has already begun. We are expecting to hear from the leaders of the BRICS nations as they address the forum in Johannesburg. I will begin with you, Captain. What do you think India will be looking for in this summit going forward?
India has to be cautious as far as expansion of BRICS is concerned, because one of the two important agendas that this BRICS summit would address is expansion of BRICS and a reserve currency, which is being propagated. Both these issues are of extreme concern to India. India would not want an unnecessary expansion of BRICS. It would want countries whose aims, objectives, and size are in congruence with the existing members. And I think that is where India would be focusing more. India would want that the business development economies of these countries grow. And as far as reserve currency is concerned, India would not want that it should be seen as a challenge to G7 or anything like that, because that would be, I think, India's primary intention, because at this point of time when this BRICS summit is happening, right, Russia is under serious sanctions from the Western world. President Putin has not been able to come because there is an ICC warrant against him. So this is a polarized world when this BRICS summit is taking place, and I think no other BRICS summit in history has generated so much of interest as this BRICS summit is generating.
Indeed, Captain. Professor Anthony van Nieuwkerk, he's joining us from Johannesburg at this hour. I want to know from you, Professor, the importance of this summit, not only for South Africa, but also for the whole continent, because we know and we understand that the host nation, that is South Africa, has invited at least 20 countries from the continent to be part of this summit. And we also understand, and we are getting reports, that Chinese President Xi Jinping is actually missing from the podium at this start of the start of this summit. What does this mean? Probably you can answer those two questions in tandem.
Yeah. Well, let me start with the latter. I was watching the arrival and the proceedings earlier today of President Xi Jinping of China with our President Cyril Ramaphosa, because preceding the BRICS summit was a bilateral visit, so to speak, to obviously to coincide with the BRICS summit. But the South Africans and the Chinese have a long-standing historical and political and ideological affinity and the relationship, and that has been put on the forefront now. And of course, in doing so, South Africa is recognizing the leadership role of China in the BRICS alliance.
Right.
Whether the president is on the podium or not, I'm not too sure what that means, because I'm talking to you at the moment. Let's see how that unfolds. But let me respond to the other part of your question, which is an important one. Many people ask the question, you know, the S in BRICS stands for South Africa, compared to India, China, Russia, and Brazil. It's a relatively small country, a small economy, a small population, and so on. Does it really deserve to be a member of this alliance? And the answer is yes. If you understand that South Africa attempts to be the voice of the African continent and speak as an African participant in this alliance. And in fact, when it had the opportunity to put to host the summit and put the agenda together with their colleagues, the first and obvious thing that South Africa did was to say, as Africans, what are our interests in the BRICS alliance? And in fact, what is Africa's interest in a possibly enlarged BRICS alliance, a BRICS plus configuration? And to that extent, the South African president invited every other African president, more than 20. 20 responded. One said no, as far as we know, and that is Morocco. But Morocco in North Africa, there's some other political dynamics that we can discuss if you want. All the others found their way to South Africa because some of them, if I may add, are important regional players on the continent in their own right. For example, Nigeria or Algeria or Egypt. And those would like to join the BRICS alliance because they have power and influence in their immediate environment, which I think, by the way, is one of the criteria for accepting new members of the BRICS alliance.
Okay, Professor, stay with me because I want to bring in Captain Alok Bansal to, join this conversation about expanding the BRICS. And before I go to you, Captain, I just have to make a clarification. The Chinese President Xi Jinping is indeed missing from the podium, but a representative is representing the president at the podium in Johannesburg, South Africa. Captain Alok Bansal, coming to you, there has been a lot of talk about expanding the BRICS bloc. So many leaders are divided over this expansion plan. How do you think that will play out in this two-day summit?
I think that is going to be the crux of this summit because different countries may want different members to join in. Like South Africa has invited all the African countries, and there is no doubt that as far as Africa continent is concerned, South Africa is relatively a smaller economy as compared to other BRICS members. So if it is actually combined with a country like Nigeria, which is the most populous state in Africa, or Egypt, which is the most populous state in North Africa, or maybe some state from East Africa, it could strengthen the organization. But the problem is that there may be certain memberships which may be contested. Like, as we know, Argentina has been wanting to join BRICS, and I think his name has been supported by China as well as Russia. One really doesn't know, though Brazil has overtly supported Argentina's membership, whether it would want to support it or not. India would definitely want countries like United Arab Emirates, etc., to come in. But the more BRICS expand, less manageable it might become. That's an issue, and I think that's a fear that these countries would have. Because as of now, in BRICS, barring South Africa, the other four countries are fairly big economies, fairly big geographies. We have the largest state in terms of area in BRICS. We have the largest two most populous countries in the world in BRICS. And we have fairly large economies. Amongst the top 5 economies, we have 2 economies in it. So we have a large expansion is the one which is going to be a problem, because if you admit a member whose general views and perceptions are not in congruence with the rest of the members, it may create problems. Because some of these members who are vying for a membership have had problems in the international arena. For example, Iran. Now, you get it in, you may have a problem because there are other members who are also keen to join in, like Saudi Arabia, UAE. And since you have a system of unanimity, how do we go about admitting more members? That I think will have to be seen. While India would definitely want some expansion of BRICS, but it would be probably against an unbridled expansion of this organ.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.